every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards, welcoming you to InFocus, a weekly program that takes a closer look at what's happening within and across the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. From the global shocks of fluctuating oil prices to the local efforts of empowering our youth through long-term financial investment education, the Cabinet Secretariat touches every household in St. Kitts and in Nevis. Whether it's the examining of past policy decisions or understanding new ones to push forward the strategic vision of a sustainable island state, there is a rigorous data-driven process happening behind the scenes to ensure our nation remains resilient in a stormy world. Joining us today to walk us through these policy decisions and to provide an update on the upcoming Independence 43 celebrations, as well as the historic hosting of the 5th Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, is Marcus Natta, the Cabinet Secretary of St. Kitts and Nevis. Stay with us for InFocus as we explore the national blueprint from people to policy. Thanks for staying with us and allow me to welcome back to InFocus a regular guest, Cabinet Secretary Dr. Marcus Natta. Dr. Natta, welcome. It's always good to have you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. So there's a lot that we have to get into, and of course you wanted to update the public on the work of the Cabinet Secretariat. And as I mentioned in the opening, of course, it touches quite a number of issues that the government has. You have to play a role in influencing and helping to shape what takes place. And so we can start with the most recent policy initiatives of the government. And of course, that would be the economic relief measures that the government, the Prime Minister himself announced during a national address to help to ease the cost of living that was imported because of what's happening in the Middle East, the conflict in Iran, of course. So tell us about some of the primary factors that went into the decisions to have these specific targeting of the relief measures.
Well, maybe I should start a bit more, give you a little historical context, because this really came out of the work of the National Cost of Living Task Force, which the Prime Minister set up several years ago. So I don't want the viewing and listening public to feel that this was something that just came about. We have been looking at cost of living long before any of these conflicts, whether Ukraine, Russia, or Iran, Israel, Gaza. We were looking at cost of living in general using our National Cost of Living Task Force. And so these most recent economic measures really came from discussions from the Cost of Living Task Force that we then passed on to the federal government.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and we're going to talk a bit about that task force as well too, a bit later on, but specifically in terms of these measures, as I mentioned now, because we saw impact in terms of the oil, the cost of oil, that of course has been an issue, and many persons would have expected relief. when we heard that the Strait of Hormuz was open, but now it's closed again. We have no control over that.
Correct.
But we have to suffer the consequences here in St. Kitts and Nevis and all throughout the world. And so tell us a bit about how it was decided that you're going to focus on energy prices, you're going to focus on solar, and the other initiatives that the Prime Minister announced.
Right. I think the world is kind of giving us a geography lesson nowadays, right? I mean, many people didn't even know where Strait of Hormuz was. We don't think about those things. We think about our own personal context here in St. Kitts and Nevis, but we are very much interconnected, and the world is not as large as people may think it is. And so anything that's happening elsewhere often has a direct impact here. And in the cost of living task force, we are looking at the fact that we import a lot of things that we need, a lot of goods. We import these goods, whether it's food or other products. And so when it comes to that, you're talking shipping, whether it's by air or sea, all of these modes of transportation require fuel. So any changes in the cost of fuel, especially if it increases, means there's an increase in cost that trickles down all the way down to us as consumers. And so the cost of living task force really wanted to tackle the energy part of things in terms of fuel. And then, because we can't necessarily control shipping costs and the oil prices, we thought of, again, looking at alternative energy equipment and giving concessions on those. There's already a policy, I must say there's already a policy, but we went a little step further in removing not just the custom service charge and the duty, but also removing the VAT until the end of this year. And so we hope that encourages persons not just to get solar panels, which is good, and there's some good programs coming up with Solarize and Drive being launched soon, but also energy saving devices, accessories, parts that can also help to reduce your costs, personally, and even if you have a business, help you to reduce your costs there as well. So energy was on the forefront. It is also a big part of us in terms of our sustainable island state. It's a pillar. One of the main pillars is energy and energy security. And so the cost of living task force thought it best to tackle the energy security dynamics, in particular as it pertains to fuel, especially unleaded gasoline.
There's some persons who are arguing, well, not arguing, but they're wondering when they'll be able to see a change.
Yes.
Because when we saw the conflict begin, almost immediately, and I'm speaking for myself, the price jumped up at the gas pumps.
Yes.
And there are persons who question, well, there does not seem to have been a new shipment that was imported.
Correct.
And so now that these measures have been taken by the government, how long can we expect to see that the prices will change? Because persons are seeming to suggest that the suppliers are likely to lengthen the process.
Right.
So is there any way that you can tell when adjustments will be made?
Well, adjustments were made yesterday. So I'm happy to say that. We saw the first adjustment happening yesterday. The Prime Minister did say from April 20th, of course you need some days to adjust, and the Ministry of Finance and all the other technical persons have their work to do there. But we've seen a drop in over $1 EC per gallon already. It was $19.30 last week. For unleaded gasoline, it's now $18.19 per gallon. So we are seeing that already. And that comes from the fact that we reduced the excise tax by 50%. The next thing that we will see is the effect from the custom service charge, which we also halved from 6% down to 3%. But again, you won't necessarily see that right away, because that will come when new shipments of fuel come in, then we can take off the 50% of the custom service charge there.
Who's in the room, Capsec, when these decisions are being made, when proposals are being passed to Cabinet to consider? Who's in the room helping to influence those decisions and inform the decision-making process?
Yeah, again, the National Cost of Living Task Force is made up of private sector persons. We have Supermax, we have the Chamber on board, we have other persons from the private sector. Primarily, of course, we have those technical persons from the Ministry of Finance, we have our Department of Statistics, for example, and so on. So we have those technical persons that deal with finance, economics, that provide the data and also provide the expertise and their guidance as to these matters. A key player in this and stakeholder, of course, is our Customs and Excise Department. You know, they're on the front line, literally, right, on our borders for these goods and services coming in. And so they're a key partner as well, and they provide us some valuable data that we can use as well to make these decisions.
Mm-hmm. And as we speak about that valuable data, it means when these concessions are made that the government is giving up. There's nothing as a free meal. Somebody has to pay for it. You have to pay. If you have a plate of food, somebody has to pay for the rice. Even though it might be free to me, somebody has to pay for it. It might be the cook, it might be the restaurant, whoever. In this case, it would be the government because they are foregoing revenue.
Correct.
How much are they foregoing?
It's quite a bit, right? It's quite a bit. For the fuel in particular, just going from $1.98 to 0.98 cents, for example, per gallon, and the excise tax, that's going to be savings, let's say. I would say we're passing this on to the consumer of 1.2 million EC dollars over these next few months, because we're doing it until July 31st in the first instance. And in terms of the custom service charge, from the Ministry of Finance, they've indicated that cost would be about 600,000 EC dollars. Now, another initiative that we have done is that because, again, of the shipping companies would add surcharges depending on their own, operational costs going up and so on. And what the government has decided to do is not to charge any tax or duties on any additional surcharges that are implemented by the shippers. So that's a little bit more difficult to quantify because you don't know when surcharges will be placed, you don't know how much. But again, I think that would be a significant amount based on what we are seeing happening in the global environment, with shipping costs going up. But again, the government is absorbing all of that and not taxing our people there. So if we add all of those up, and even the alternative energy equipment, the estimates are that's about maybe $500,000 EC dollars, depending on how much equipment people bring in. And so I believe conservatively, I can say it's probably over 4 million EC dollars that the government is foregoing, at least up to maybe July, the end of July, thereabouts. And we don't know what will happen necessarily after that. So it's a significant amount.
Right, we don't know how long this conflict will last. Again, sometimes we see signs of light at the end of the tunnel, but then things...
It goes away very quickly.
Yes. And the thing about it, Capsec, is that, of course, the Prime Minister, he's the Minister of Finance.
Yes.
But he's always very passionate about shielding and helping persons along the way so that they are able to not be burdened by any sort of external factors that unfortunately would fall on us here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Correct. He's a physician, right? So I guess that comes from it, caring for people and so on, and that's part of his personality. But without taking you into the cabinet per se, I mean, these are a lot of the discussions we have in cabinet. How can we mitigate against external shocks? How can we shield our people? How can we help our people to go through and navigate these increases in costs of living? Things like you rightly said at the top that we did not cause, right? But we have to deal with. How do we do that? And so a lot of the time in cabinet is often spent, after the formal documents and so on. A lot of it is spent for us trying to decide how can we really help our people and lower the cost of living, improve their lives, improve health, all of these things. And so the Prime Minister is always keen on that, and that's always in his arguments and discussions with us as to how can we really help people.
Okay, and so one of the questions that also pops up, and I hinted at it earlier as well too, but I want to hone in on it specifically because, of course, the Prime Minister mentioned that businesses are encouraged to pass on the savings that the government is granting to help ease the financial burden on our customers here in St. Kitts and Nevis, our consumers, to pass on the savings that the government is foregoing essentially. Is there a mechanism in place where that can be ensured rather than giving that strong encouragement that there is some teeth, that there is some sort of a policy or legislation or whatever to enforce that?
Yeah, some of that is already being done, right? Because we already have thresholds on the cost of certain goods and margins by which persons can add their profits and so on, and you can't go beyond certain thresholds. So that's already in place in certain instances. But one of the key players that is at the table in terms of our cost of living task force is the Consumer Affairs Department, and they are key. They monitor, people know them for monitoring our supermarkets, but it's not just the supermarkets. They have a mandate to monitor prices across the board, monitor businesses, especially when we implement these economic relief measures, making sure that the businesses do adhere. So they have their inspectors, they have their officials who go out, monitor before, always monitoring, but monitor before something is implemented and during as well the implementation, to make sure there's no price gouging, there are no nefarious acts being committed by the businesses onto their consumers. And we have to realize that we are all consumers, right? Me and you, we are consumers as well, and so we want to ensure the best for us as well as the government. And so the Consumer Affairs Department is really key on that, and they're the ones who are really mandated to go out there and do that for us.
Maybe this is a good time to make a plug for the SKN Smart Shopper app that the Consumer Affairs Department launched, right?
Yes, so I would encourage persons to check it out. I know they had one some years ago, but they've really retooled it, revamped it, and it's a wonderful app. You can go and see the prices for your goods, your products, produce, and compare, and map out where you would want to go and purchase and so on. So you should really check it out.
And of course, that speaks to as well to a campaign that the National Cost of Living Task Force has been running. There's been some infographics that have been produced, and we established already that we're not, when I said we, as in the government is not forcing anyone to go and buy a product. If you prefer Kellogg's cornflakes, that's up to you if you want to spend the money. However, there are alternatives that you may want to consider.
Yes, of course. And so we started this Smart Spend SKN campaign, as you rightly said, and we put out some infographics on that and did some comparisons across brands and showed the different prices. And so, it generated a lot of buzz, I think, with the public. But the underlying thing is that we just want persons to make wiser decisions. We want you to, read labels more, look at the prices, look at the ingredients, because often, a lot of times, the quality of the products when you compare the brands, there's no difference really. A lot of times, some things, of course, there's taste, and persons have particular tastes. Somebody might like a particular brand of water versus another one. But fundamentally, the quality of the products often are not very far apart. And so our goal with the Cost of Living Task Force was just put that information out there to try to generate a different sense of and thinking amongst our people when they go to the grocery store or go to the supermarkets, and just for them to look at the products a little bit more carefully and just make better decisions, decisions that can help you, whether it's your pocket or your health, as the case may be. But the government cannot dictate to persons their choice. Everybody has choice, and so if you want to choose a particular brand, you choose that particular brand. But as the Cost of Living Task Force, we were just putting out that information to give people that sense of, look and compare products.
Right, St. Kitts and Nevis remains generally a free market society, of course. Have you gotten any feedback from those graphics in terms of the impact that they're having on consumers and on consumer spending? Yeah,
we have through social media mostly. I can't say we did like a formal survey or anything like that, but through the feedback from social media, you can tell from the comments. Some persons would of course send emails and say what they liked, what they didn't like. Some of it we tried to make it a little humorous as well, and so it had a little humor mixed in there, and so persons appreciated that. I think overall, any feedback we got, whether positive or negative, is good, because that means people are engaged. They're looking. They saw first of all, they saw the graphics. They digested it, and they were able to give some sort of commentary, whether it was positive, negative, neutral. And so we're reaching people, and that was the most important thing.
Can you tell us of any major initiatives that the task force is pursuing?
Right now, we launched some months ago a national business survey where we sent a short survey out to all the businesses that we had contact information for via email. We did a QR code as well, and just asked some questions just to get a sort of baseline scenario as it pertains to the cost of them operating their businesses. So we did from large businesses right down to some of the micro businesses, and we've gotten some good feedback. I think when I looked the last time, it was about close to 250 responses that we received.
As in, and those responses represent different businesses?
All of those were different businesses, small, micro to large. And the statistics department, we're doing it in partnership with them, as well as the consumer affairs department. And so that will give us a nice baseline as to where persons are. Initial maybe responses are already there for us to sort of analyze. And so we'll probably put out a report on that and use that to build on another survey, because this was really just a primary initial one. And we want to go a little deeper, especially now that things have changed so dramatically over the last few months, and see how we can get a sense of the business environment right now, and then use that information to funnel into what other maybe relief measures we need to do, what other policies we need to put in place.
And of course, say yesterday, that would be Tuesday the 21st,
Right.
the Social Security Board held a consultation with stakeholders at the Marriott, and of course included in part of the discussions were the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and Mr. Trevor Blake, who is the immediate past president.
Right.
He was there. He spoke for businesses. He did say that he could speak a bit for the Chamber, although he's not the president. He's still, of course, a member.
Right.
And he spoke very importantly about the need for businesses and government to cooperate together in terms of determining the impact of policies, that there are forecasts that are made by businesses that would impact any decisions that are made, would impact their forecasts and affect their bottom line and their operating costs, and so there's a whole ecosystem that has to be determined.
Yeah, and I mean we're all intertwined. That's the thing, right? I mean, of course, government is always keen on making decisions that are informed, right? And so, as the case maybe, as you rightly asked me, who's at the table when we're making certain decisions, we bring in some of those persons. You can appreciate that the government, if it's making a decision, often the persons in the room might be mostly government persons, but we also include the private sector. The Chamber is a good stakeholder and partner with the government on a lot of initiatives, a lot of committees that we set up, and so we get their insights. But beyond even the Chamber, we have a small business and entrepreneurship ministry now, where we tap into, for their own members, quote unquote members, small businesses, micro businesses, and we bring in those people as well from time to time to get a real, as we might say locally, on the ground sort of perspective, and that's important in decision making. Of course, sometimes, as you can appreciate, depending on the circumstance, there's really not time necessarily to bring all the key stakeholders together, and so the government may have to make some decisions, separate and apart from those persons, but in their best interest always.
And you spoke about the small business. We had a team from small business last week.
Yes,
and they were promoting the Building Bankable Business, which of course government is initiating to help micro businesses and small businesses to understand the importance of record keeping, to helping them to reshape and reorganize their businesses in a way that would make it more attractive for investments or loans. And so that's certainly something that the government is doing as well to support the growth of business here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The Prime Minister has been keen on stressing entrepreneurship is an important part of moving St. Kitts and Nevis along economically and of course towards a sustainable island state. Right. All right. So Dr. Natta, in terms of the decisions that are made now, and as we reflect on the policies that the government is making, as I mentioned, the Cabinet Secretariat is imbued with a lot of decisions that are helping to move along the process. And there's the policy unit that you also head a part of. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, when I assumed the office in 2022, this unit didn't exist. This is something that I advocated for, and I'm glad that we have that now. So we developed a policy and research unit primarily because, again, we want the decisions of cabinet to be data-driven. We want them to be informed decisions. And there were a lot of things that in government, and it's not just our government, I don't think, that are done by practice, by precedent. You know, you get the phrase like, you know, well, this is just how we've done it all along. We've done it this way for all these years and so on. But there's often nothing written. We've gotten a lot better over the years, I must say. I've been in this service for a little bit, and we've gotten a lot better in terms of really documenting things, but we're still not quite there. And so one of the main things I wanted the Policy and Research Unit to do is to capture the national policies in particular that we have, and any gaps that we find, either encourage the ministries, work with the ministries to develop these policies, and for us to be sort of a repository for some of these, not to replace the archives, right? Mm-hmm. But in terms of the policies, to be a repository there where persons can just come and see those. And so far we've been doing a good job there. There's actually on gov.kn, our government website, there's actually a specific tab that points to specific national policies, and persons can go there, view them, download them. So students doing SBAs and so on, you know, they can go there, see the youth policy and so on, and download it, read through it.
Mm-hmm. Right, okay. We're going to take our first break.
Sure.
Before we get a bit more into the policy unit, because time is ticking by.
Sure.
So we're going to take our break now, viewers and listeners. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more in focus.
What if your child's journey to wealth could begin with a single step? Through Aspire, every young citizen aged 5 to 18 receives $1,000 EC dollars, half in savings, half invested in their future. Financial education for life. Sign up today. Give your child a future of financial freedom. Don't wait for wealth to knock. Create it with Aspire.
Welcome back to InFocus. We continue our discussion with Dr. Marcus Natta, the Cabinet Secretary in the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Natta, we spoke about the policy unit, and you spoke about the importance of having a repository where you can go and find the different policies that the government has passed, and that would help to influence, of course, new policies. Can you speak to us about having the value of such a repository towards the work of the Cabinet Secretariat?
It's critically important because, you know, people don't like to be bounced around too much. And if you can have a one-stop shop, so to speak, that always augurs well for persons. And so that's what we're really trying to do. We don't want people to be wondering and guessing, like, is there a youth policy? Is there a sports policy? Where can I find it? You call the sports department. They say, yes, we do have it. You have to come down to the sports department, or we have to email it to you. If we can put things in one spot, and have persons go there, it's a lot easier. And like I said, we're well on the way to that because we've gathered those that are already available, and we have them on the government's gov.kn website, and persons can just go there and pull them down. But our goal is really to expand that, and more so to do some research and see what other national policies do we really need to also look at, those that may have expired, those that don't exist at all, and work in coordination with the ministries to get those accomplished.
Is there anything that you would have identified initially that would need work on in terms of policies, that there needs to be more of an area development there?
Well, the national indoor air quality, right? That's one that we're currently doing, and I come from that space before I came into this position, where I learned a lot about air quality from my good colleagues at the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards, and so it's a big issue for us here in the region and here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and so that's one of the first ones we've tackled.
Okay. In terms of having these policies posted online, that also fits into government's e-government strategy.
Correct.
As well.
Yes, correct. And making information more easily accessible to persons, that's one of the goals of the government as well.
How would you say, as the government and the policy unit develops its evidence-based research, how would you say that aspect of it has developed over the years since it was launched? Because, of course, as you rightly said, there are a lot of gaps. And we see in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the region, we unfortunately are not the best at keeping records, as you would have recalled. So how would you say that those gaps in terms of strengthening the systems to support the research of the work of the policy research unit has been going? How has it evolved?
I mean, it's been going well. Again, it's new, and so we are getting a little foothold because persons now know that this unit exists. So when my officer, my analyst reaches out, they're a little bit more, amicable in the sense and free to give information, right? It's because nobody has had previously maybe asked about that particular information. And so the work is ongoing. It has been going well. We're getting the cooperation, what we're doing, even having like a social media presence for the Secretariat and highlighting what we want done. That helps a lot. And we have plans for national consultations. We have done some consultations with persons, and we try to have a presence in spaces where we have various ministries meeting as well. So public sector investment planning committees and so on. So we try to have a presence there so that we can encourage that sort of partnership with our office.
During our break, we would have run a promo for Aspire.
Yes.
Which, of course, we have been doing over the weeks. We didn't just run it because you were here. Actually, I normally have an Aspire pen, but I can't seem to find it.
We'll have to get you another one.
Somewhere. Absolutely, I welcome that. Talk to us a bit about Aspire, for those who may not be aware still.
Yes.
And I don't know, there are persons overseas, so
yes.
But everyone locally, I think, have heard the term Aspire, even though they may not understand it fully. Talk to us about Aspire.
Well, I love Aspire. So Aspire is my baby, or one of my babies maybe, and I'm happy to chair that task force. And back in 2023, the Prime Minister made the announcement of a financial empowerment and educational program that he wanted to launch for our citizens between the ages of 5 and 18. The name Aspire was nowhere around. It was just this idea, this concept. And so I was charged, along with some very, very good persons, way more intelligent than I am in that particular space, and we formed the task force. Eventually did a whole competition, got the name Aspire, and we launched the program officially during independence in 2024. And the program is a three-phase program, as I like to say. One is a cash savings account of $500. And currently that's housed at the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank with an interest rate of 2.5%. Then the second phase, which is the investment part of it, where we have each Aspire participant will get $500 EC in investment shares. Currently we're looking at the cable and the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank for those shares, and we are still actively working on developing that investment. So it's a little bit tricky, but we're working on that still. And then the third phase, which I consider the most important phase, is the financial education, financial skills, financial empowerment part of the program, where we go into the schools, embed it in the curriculum, and have the students learn not just what we learn like saving and budgeting, but investing, how to make your money grow, how to make your money work for you even when you're sleeping, and learning how to spend money wisely and so on. So that's, to me, the third phase with the financial education in the schools is the most important phase.
And we saw recently that it was being piloted. I believe it was in 2 schools in particular. Tell us a bit how the pilot is going.
Yes. First we started out with some train-the-trainer workshops with the teachers, teaching them how to teach, that sort of financial education side of things. And now we're doing some pilots. We're in the Washington Archibald High School as well as the Bastia High School. We hope to do some work in Nevis. We have a representative on our task force from Nevis who is working with the schools in Nevis as well. And that's been going quite well. The teachers are happy because we didn't really want to add a burden to the teachers, like another class to teach, So we've tried to weave it in nicely into the curriculum so it's not onerous on the teachers. The teachers so far love it. The students love it because we use a lot of techniques, games, storytelling, scenarios, interactive scenarios, and so on, to bring across the message of financial education, literacy, investments, and all of that. And so it's been going quite well. And what we're doing is evaluating those pilots and looking to see any kinks that we need to, smooth out so that we can eventually roll it out. I can't say we will roll it out in the new school year to all schools yet. We'll have to evaluate the pilot some more, but we hope to roll that out to all the schools pretty soon. If not this year, hopefully next year.
Right. Or some phased approach, add more schools and gradually implement the others.
Yes.
Right. So let me just back up. You said that it was launched in 2024. And of course, the important part of it in terms of the savings and investments would include accounts being created, as you mentioned, within the National Bank, the St. Kitts Nevis and Gouda National Bank.
Yes.
To date, or should I say based on recent figures that you have, how many children have been enrolled?
So far we have 4,385. I checked. You see, I know the exact number. I checked just before I came on the show. But we have 4,385 students currently. And all, if not all, have already savings account. I think just over 4,300 have savings accounts. Depending on when they were approved, it takes a little bit just to set up the account and seed the account with the funds. But that's a significant figure, and we're happy. We've had over 5,500 applicants. But of course, not everyone will be accepted. Most persons who are not accepted, it's because they are not citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the program is only for citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. And the other numbers that we are trying to bring down are those which we have labeled as incomplete. Somebody may have started, and we have just about 900 of those, which is a significant number. And so we are working with our colleagues at Education. We have a team there. We have a team at the Cable, who is one of our partners, who call persons, follow up, help them to complete, ask them to complete, upload documents that they may have not uploaded. But I think we're doing well in terms of the registration so far.
4,385, that's equivalent to, as you speak, $1,000 per child. That's 4,385,000.
Yeah, you're maths man.
Just add zeros. Just add zeros. Yeah, that's a significant investment.
It's a significant investment, and the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, of course, is proud to do that. I mean, the Prime Minister has said that for us, for him, persons like me, maybe you, in terms of our financial start, he's always made the analogy of a race, and that we were starting not at the start line but behind the start line. And so what he sees Aspire as is giving persons that, moving them up to the start line in terms of when they're adults now, that they have a foundation, a financial foundation on which to build, not just the actual dollars, but the knowledge in how to use those dollars.
And also, as we would have seen recently, the ECCB, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, would have launched the big push, the strategic plan for the next 5 years.
Yes.
And one of the points made by Governor Timothy Antoine was that the region, the ECCU, has a lot of savings, a lot of monies in savings
have
that
lots
are
of
in the
cash.
banks.
Yes.
Yes. But very little in terms of us as nationals of the ECCU in terms of investments. Very little.
That's correct. And it's just because people just don't know. People just don't know. I consider myself a very intelligent person, but I wasn't brought up necessarily with that knowledge about investment, stocks. We weren't taught those things. We weren't, whether in our homes or at school, we were taught to save, budget, So the investment side of things is something that's new to us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Like I said, the ECCU, a lot of persons just don't know. And they may think you need to have a lot of money to invest. And it's often not the case, right? You can start with something small and just, build up. So it's something that Aspire hopefully will change for the next generation, that they will get this knowledge. And the beauty about Aspire is that although I told you this significant number of persons who were rejected because they're not citizens, those same young people sit in the classrooms. And as I said, the third phase is the biggest one to me, is the financial education. So even if they don't get the $1,000, they're getting something even more valuable because they're getting that education on finances, investments, and so on. So to me, the program is really a win-win all around, whether you're a citizen or you're not a citizen.
And the thing about it is, to Dr. Natta, of course, if the parents can match, and I'm not speaking specifically to those who are eligible, I want to come to those in a minute, but those who are not eligible, those who are not nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis, their parent, there's nothing stopping them from going and having that $500 and investing it into, say, government bonds, because of course the Prime Minister would have gone ahead and reduced the limit for where persons can invest, and it came down to $500.
Correct. And what I envision happening is those same young people going to their parents and telling them, well, I learned this thing in school and so on. Can you help me invest in something? That's where I think we're going to reach as we continue with the Aspire program.
Okay. You mentioned, of course, as we go back to the fact of 4,385 persons, do you have a sense in terms of how much of that formed youth population who will be eligible, of course, nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis?
Yes. From our discussions with the Ministry of Education and the numbers we got, we have around 9,000 to 10,000 students that are in that age bracket. It's a little bit tougher to carve out all of the nationalities, citizens, non-citizens, but just based on that number, and if you remove some of the persons who are not citizens, we are well over 50%. In terms of the eligible persons, right? Because we're already 4,300 plus. So I think we're doing quite well for a program that was officially launched, like I said, just 2 years ago, right? And we're constantly building every day. People apply, and we continue to spread the word about it, so persons know that it's, of course, every day somebody might turn 5, somebody might turn 18, as the case may be. But I think we're doing quite well, and we're over 50%, and we're pushing to get the numbers up even more.
Have we seen persons, again, as I come back to the point that I made earlier, persons, parents, godparents, whoever, even the children themselves, they can do so. They can take their own monies and invest it on the savings account that was created for them under Aspire. Have we seen any of that happening?
Oh, we see a lot of that. We see a lot of that. And so persons are already depositing, they're going all the time. A child might get some birthday money and so on. They go in, they deposit. So what we are working on next with the bank, which is not there currently, so I just want to give the public the assurance that we are working on a portal where these Aspire participants, they can go in and view their account, and like the ad says, watch their money grow, because that's an important part of it. You don't want to just be depositing and you have no sight of what you're doing. So I want to assure the public that we're working closely with the bank on getting a portal set up so that they can view. The point is, you can't make transactions. So it'll be probably just view only, and you can watch the progress of the of your account. So you can make deposits on the account, but you cannot make withdrawals until the end of the Aspire program, when you're 18 plus.
Right.
Yes.
And hopefully, of course, equipped with the knowledge of investments, it will be used for such to further your education. Of course, that would be a big help as it grows interest and because it's special interest rates and investments as well, that the return comes in, that they'll be able to fund their own education.
Of course.
Of course, the Development Bank has reduced rates and they've put a freeze on, thanks to the Prime Minister as well, to have to complete your studies. So it all works together.
Okay.
It all works together.
Yes, it does. It does.
Right. Okay. Let's shift our attention now, Dr. Natta, to the 5th annual Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Summit.
Yes.
Forum it's called.
Yes.
It's going to be held here in St. Kitts and Nevis for the very first time. Tell us a bit about the significance of St. Kitts and Nevis, the smallest Western sovereign country, hosting this conference.
This is a major forum. The very first trip that the Prime Minister went on when he became Prime Minister back in August 2022 was to Barbados for the very first active, and I was privileged to accompany him on that very first trip. And so this has been something that's been building for quite some time, where we are trying to bridge our two regions, the African continent and our Caribbean region. We have lots of historical ties, as you know, lots of cultural ties, and so now we want to build on those ties and include trade, investment, tourism, education, and we're already doing that. So St. Kitts and Nevis is proud to be hosting the 5th annual Active. It has been growing annually. Last year it was in Grenada. They had about 1,800 delegates, and so we're going to see a significant number of persons come into St. Kitts and Nevis, not just from the African continent, but from the diaspora, the global Africa diaspora, and from our own region as well. So it's a huge forum, and we want to, and we will ensure that our local service providers, vendors, get an opportunity to, ply their trade, showcase their wares, as the case may be, as well.
When and where will this be held?
So this is due at the end of July, so July 29th to 31st, and the primary location will be the St. Kitts Marriott Resort.
What sectors do you expect will be further enhanced from having Active here in St. Kitts and Nevis?
All of them. I mean, I know that's a broad answer, but specifically, and I must say, for Active is an initiative of Afrexim Bank. And Afrexim Bank is a huge bank in Africa, headquartered in Cairo. They've been doing a lot of development work in our region, and in particular in St. Kitts and Nevis. So we are proud that we can partner with Afrexim Bank. So I just wanted to state that. But when I say all the sectors, I really mean all, because although it talks about trade and investment, like I said, I mean, you're talking tourism, you're talking education, even utilities. We are looking at all of these things with our Sustainable Island State in terms of digital transformation. All of these areas are impacted. Of course, having all of these people here is great. It's going to bring some revenue into the country. But once they leave, they're not just leaving, they're making connections with our own local persons, which can redound to entrepreneurship opportunities as well. Even music, art, all of these things. As part of Active, there's going to be Active Fest, which is a huge concert that they do. And it's not just music. They're looking at dance, they're looking at also arts, visual arts. And so there are a lot of opportunities, and like I said, it's for our people to make the necessary connections and capitalize on these opportunities from a forum like this.
With that fest that's coming up that you talked about, of course, showcasing local talent will be an important part of that.
Of course. And so, as we partner with Afrexim Bank, they have their persons who they would want to bring in. We have our local talent, regional talent will be coming in as well, and so I can foresee it being a really, really good event.
So we're coming up to the end of April, so there's just about over 2 months left to be able to learn more and register. How can persons do so if you're interested in being able to participate? Is that available right now?
It's not available as yet. We are working with Afrexim Bank. We have a draft website right now. I was actually just previewing it earlier today. And so I believe they've started some registration in terms of those persons who have to fly in. But in terms of the local persons who might be exhibitors and vendors, we're not quite there yet. And once that is ready, we'll put that out to the public.
Afrexim Bank, during the CARICOM 50th conference that was held here in St. Kitts and Nevis, pledged an additional support in terms of investment for the region from $3 billion to $5 billion.
Correct.
That's an extra $2 billion.
Yes.
That was before the conflicts that we are seeing now.
Yes.
Is there an expectation that the geopolitics will take away from some of that investment and also impact participation in active?
We have not seen any indication of that. The bank has assured that their pledge is still solid, and maybe the conflicts might even push them to increase rather than decrease, noting what may happen. And it's important that you point out the conflicts and the fact that we have been trying to, like I say, maybe rebuild this bridge, right? It wasn't a very nice bridge in the middle, in terms of the Middle Passage, but we're building a new bridge that will be better than that for sure, long before these conflicts even started. And so it shows the importance and the vision by our Prime Minister and his fellow Caribbean and CARICOM colleagues in making that connection with Africa so that we can trade, we can invest, we can go there, as opposed to what's happening north of both of our regions. And so I think it's visionary, and I think it is timely, and we are bearing the fruits already from that partnership. So I again, the bank has pledged their support, and I probably foresee them looking at improving and enhancing on that support.
The importance of having a stable region.
Yes.
Again, and also with the currency union that we have, a very strong currency
Strong
union.
dollar, yes.
Right, absolutely. And we're going to have the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank on sometime in the future to talk a bit about the importance of having that strong dollar.
Yes.
Of course, the 50th anniversary of the peg of the EC dollar to the US dollar is
Correct.
coming up, and so we'll be exploring that with him and other officials from ECCB. Let's shift.
Sure.
Independence 43.
Yes.
Where are we?
Well, we are in the early planning stages. And independence is always a wonderful time for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. It's a time to, pause and reflect and look at where we came from, where we are, where we're going, kind of block out a lot of the other noise just for a moment and focus on St. Kitts and Nevis and our patriotism. And so our planning committee has met already, and plans are well underway. One of the things we've done is launched our theme competition. Annually, we always want independence to be commemorated with a particular theme, which would drive the activities around independence. And so that competition has begun, and the deadline is April 30th, so persons can still have some time to think of their themes and submit them.
And persons looking at this program would see, and if you could just put back up the theme, if you could just talk to us a bit about some of the eligibility requirements.
Yeah, sure. So we want the theme to be concise, 6 to 8 words, and we really want it to reflect St. Kitts and Nevis, right? And it should be a reflection of you, the person who is submitting, what you envision for St. Kitts and Nevis. What would you like to see St. Kitts and Nevis be? It should capture our culture, the essence of St. Kitts and Nevis as a whole. And of course, you want it to be catchy, nice for young students to hold on to, remember, and recite easily, that sort of thing. So again, it's open to all citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, whether you're here in St. Kitts and Nevis or you're abroad, you're a Kittitian and Nevisian, wherever you are, you are able to submit. There's a QR code you can scan. It's an online form. You fill that out. It takes you less than a minute, and you make your submission. And you can submit more than one. So you can make a submission, log out, go back in, make another submission, as the case may be.
All right, and again, persons watching, the QR code is on the screen, so you can go ahead and scan that right now. But there's a deadline, Capsec. There's a deadline right there.
Yeah, so the deadline is April 30th, the last day of April, which is next Thursday, I believe.
Yes.
Next Thursday,
yes.
Just about midnight, we will close it off. So persons have just over a week to make their submissions. I glanced at, I don't look at the submissions. We have a special committee that will review those, so I don't look at them, but I've just glanced at the numbers, and we have over 120 submissions at present. So that's quite a few, and so we look forward to receiving some more.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, how many to date. Is that on track with what we've seen last year, or is it a bit lower?
It's on track. Persons, as deadlines approach, you know, you think it's something, that's when people get kind of going. But last year we saw just over 200, and so I think we're on track. I think over the next week or so we'll see a lot more coming.
Are there any innovations? One of the things that I've recognized is that there's always seemed to have been every year,
yes,
since 2022, that there's something new that was added, whether it be the raising of a flag using drones, whether it be an incredible drone show. We appreciate that. Of course, that was for the 40th anniversary,
yes,
and it was something special. 45, I imagine, would be the next milestone, as we normally do things with 0 and 5 in terms of commemorations. But last year, of course, there was the inclusion of the West Indian Regiment that went down very well. Can we expect to see any new innovations added to this year's parade?
Yes. That's the short answer, yes. So you're quite right. Each year the organizing committee, we try to do something a little different, a little innovative, whether it's an activity separate and apart or something within a particular activity. Even our church service, we've altered a little bit without losing the essence of it, and added a nice gospel concert to it. So persons look forward to these innovative aspects, like you said. I would say before I get into any changes, one of the things that we will remain the same, that we changed some years ago, was the time of the Independence ceremonial parade. Traditionally it was in the morning. It is now in the evening. It will remain in the evening, at least for the foreseeable future. And going back to our earlier discussions, climate change is, a very real thing. The mornings and the days are very warm. Prime Minister is a medical doctor, and he does not like to see people, passing out, fainting.
Especially young people.
Especially young persons. And so we've decided to shift to the evening. And even though the evening can be warm, it's not as warm as during the daytime. So I just wanted to say that the parade will be in the evening.
But that's not unusual. I've looked at parades across the region, and I haven't seen anyone that has it in the morning. I may be wrong, but the majority of them, they're either in the afternoon, going into the evening.
Yeah. So the traditionalists might be upset. I remember going to the parade with my father, and so I'm a traditionalist. I like the morning, but I fully understand what's happening right now with global warming and climate change in general. And so what we want to do with the parade in particular this year, which we don't have it set yet, is do, like I said, something a little different. And the West India Regiment from Brimstone Hill, when we brought those last year, I know people really, really enjoyed that. And so we might do a little something there as well and tweak it a little bit. But we're looking at some other innovative aspects of it. Again, not to take away from the tradition, it is a military parade, so the military aspects will be there, but there are going to be some other aspects that we want to include. One of the things we try to do sometimes as well is have a visiting, unit from overseas, military unit, as the case may be, to come and be on the parade with us. We'll see if we can facilitate something like that. But there's some other innovations that we want to do, as well as maybe some of the activities. We're going to put out a call soon for fringe activities, because it's not just government. We welcome private persons to celebrate independence, commemorate independence, and so we look forward to receiving those as well. Okay.
Dr. Natta, we have about 30 seconds left, so I'll give you an opportunity to make any final comments about the work of the Secretariat.
Time flew the honors today. But I want to thank you again, Mr. Richards, for having me on InFocus. It's always a pleasure to come and speak with you and speak to people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We covered a lot of things today, but I just wanted to highlight the Cabinet Secretariat. When I started, it was just me and one staff. I now have 2 additional staff, which is good, and so we are trying to do some more work. We are trying to highlight the work of the Cabinet Secretariat. I don't think anybody really knew what the Cabinet Secretariat did, or the Cabinet Secretary for that matter. I don't think it needs to be a secret, because I think we do some valuable work. Today's Administrative Professionals Day, so I want to say happy Administrative Professionals Day to my staff, as well as any administrative professionals across St. Kitts and Nevis and beyond. They are the backbone of my office and help to do a lot of work. So I just want to encourage the public, the Cabinet Secretariat, 3rd floor, we're on Government Headquarters, Church Street. If there's anything that you need information on, policy-wise, or anything in general about government that we can assist, we are open. We're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, you can reach out to us. As it pertains to some of the things that we discussed, especially the cost of living, I want to thank my colleagues in the National Cost of Living Task Force for their hard work and their advice and guidance to the government. And we continue to monitor the situations across the globe and see how we can shield and protect our people. Again, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis is in a position where we do not cause a lot of the shocks that we experience. We experience economic shocks, natural shocks, right? Climate change and so forth. But that's no excuse for us not trying to mitigate, adapt, shield, protect our people from these shocks. And that's what we continue to do each and every day. And so we continue to ask the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to work with the government, do what you can, and rest assured the government will do what it can to assist you as well.
I'll borrow a quote from ECCB Governor Antoine: if you are standing still, you're falling behind.
That's correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank you, Cabinet Secretary.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Thank you.
Thank you, viewers and listeners, for joining us for this edition of InFocus. We trust that you will join us next week at the same place at the same time. Remember, at InFocus, we discuss your government, your business. I'm Ian Richards.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info. Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.